All right, Samori Benjamin here at Madison Square Garden before the Knicks take on the Utah Jazz with a very special guest, former NBA ball player, NCAA champion at North Carolina State, Mr. Thurl Bailey. Thurl, thank you for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, definitely. And Thurl right now is a broadcaster for the Utah Jazz, has been for a very long time. Now, Thurl, I know you're from the DMV area, right?
Yes.
So, just coming up, how did you get into basketball?
My journey is a little interesting because I started in music first. I got cut twice in junior high in 7th and 8th grade, and the coach told me not to come back.
Wow.
They changed coaches the next year, so I tried out again. I was 9th grade. I was about 6'9", and I wasn't very good, but that coach saw something in me. So he kept me on the team, and he sent me in for just the jump balls and took me out for the rest of the game after, but he helped me develop. He saw something in me, helped me develop, and I went on. Dr. J was my idol back then, so I would emulate him in the yard. And, you're down by a point with 5 seconds to go. You're always somebody else, right? But that kind of is what got me started in loving basketball. That coach kept me on the team and saw something in me. I had coaches after that saw the same thing.
So, in high school in Maryland, what was the competition level like at that time?
In PG County, it was pretty good. I went to Bladensburg High School, and of course we had some great schools there in competition. Largo was one of them. We had some really great competition. We did have the private schools. We may have played preseason, like we scrimmaged DeMatha in the preseason. They came over and beat us by about 60. And two guys that were on that DeMatha team was Derek Wittenberg and Sidney Lowe, who I ended up playing against in college. But the competition was pretty tough back then in PG County.
Right, so growing up, watching ACC basketball and all that, and Maryland, of course, right there, University of Maryland, you decided to not go there, but you decided to go to NC State and play for the great Jim Valvano. So how did you end up deciding to play at NC State?
That's a great question. I wasn't heavily recruited, but I was recruited by some good schools. I started to come along with my game my junior, senior year. So North Carolina and Chapel Hill recruited me. And North Carolina State recruited me only because I won a raffle to be at a basketball camp there a few summers before. And they just kept tabs on me. Norm Sloan was the head coach at that time. John Thompson recruited me at Georgetown and Lefty Giselle at Maryland. Those are my last 3 schools. North Carolina stopped recruiting me when they signed a guy you might know by the name of James Worthy. So it came down to NC State, Georgetown, and Maryland. And I liked Coach Sloan. They won a national championship in '74 with David Thompson. And my parents were from North Carolina, so I was ready to get away from home a little bit, but not too far where my parents couldn't come watch me play. So I chose NC State. After my freshman year, Norm Sloan left. And they hired some guy from Iona College in New York named Jim Valvano, and then the rest is history.
Okay, we got 2 or 3 more for you. I know you have to get ready for your pregame broadcast. Now, ACC basketball at the time, you talked about James Worthy, and of course, Michael Jordan was there at that time, Ralph Sampson, just all the tremendous ball players. What was it like playing against those talented players at that time in college?
Well, I hope somebody's asking them what was it like playing against us too.
Definitely.
But I think now that we know what those players would become on the next level, it's incredible how the competition was just amazing at that time. Like we didn't know that Michael Jordan was going to be, in my eyes, the greatest basketball player ever to play at that time because of the system he was in with Dean Smith. Didn't allow him to do those kind of things. And that's when colleges had rivals. That's when guys stayed 3 and 4 years. So you develop that rivalry. It was just amazing to be able to play against those kind of players. Ralph Sampson was one of the first of his kind. He was that era's Wembanyama, right? So now that I look back sometimes and I see all the greats that came out during that era, it was a different type of game then, but I loved it.
Yeah, and to your point, college basketball definitely at that time, that was before everybody started leaving after 1 year, the ones and dones, and even 2 years.
No transfer portal.
Right, and you had truly great ball players, great basketball teams. that definitely was just a great time in college basketball. And you all ended up, of course, winning the national championship in 1983. Historic moment, historic championship game. You beat Houston. So what was that moment like for you, and just what is it like to be a part of that team and be able to share it with those guys?
Well, the moment was great, winning the national championship, winning that title game. But the best part was the journey, what it took us to get there. And not just that year, but when Coach Valvano walked into a room and told guys he had never recruited that his goal was to win a national championship, and we could do that. And we thought he was crazy. But he told us that if we stuck around, we're going to be a part of something great. I don't know if this guy, he had that he really believed that we could do it. Whether we did or not, he sold it to us, and we stayed. And of course, over the course of 2 or 3 years, you saw where we ended up. But we had a great group of guys. We had all the elements that you needed to have a great team. We didn't have one superstar. We had guys who knew their roles and played them really well. We had a lot of failure, because that's where you learn the most. Derek Wittenberg goes down against Virginia. Ernie Myers steps in and does his thing. We had guys like George McClain come in. We had a team of guys that understood what we were trying to accomplish. And there's a lot of national championships won, but I don't know if there's ever been one won that way.
Hey, all right, last two real quick. You were the leading scorer and rebounder for that national championship team. Then you get drafted right after that to Utah, and you're still in Utah right now. So what was that experience like for you, getting drafted right after that and going to Utah at the time?
It was great. I mean, I really hadn't had any notions a few years before that of playing in the NBA. I didn't think I was good enough. But my development in college and coaches that saw what I could be, and the team I was on, obviously we won a national championship, so we're going to be on the radar of scouts on how they did that, and I was an integral part of that. Yeah, I mean, to play at the best level, the best basketball in the world is always an honor, because there's not that many jobs available. And for me to be able to, I didn't care where I went. Utah was a culture shock for me, but the people were great. I made my home there, raised my family there. My wife's from there. So we've made it home. And just to transition into a career broadcasting after that is something really special for me. So, I had a great career, played against some great players, and I did my thing, man.
Last one. Okay, we're here at Madison Square Garden. When you were a player, what was it like for you to play here, and what's it like just when you come here now to the Garden?
Oh, historic. I mean, you ask anybody who's ever set foot in this place, it's always a great part of history. I mean, I went up on the concourse, and I'm reading all the things that have transpired in this place. And it's one of the most iconic arenas in the universe, right? And so to come here as a player and play against some of the greats, the Patrick Ewings, the Bernard Kings, those kind of guys, and know that sometimes you won in here, right? You didn't always lose, you won in here. And so that's what real rivalries are about. This place is, it's always a topic of conversation when I'm talking about the world of basketball, the people, and the great places I was able to play and win and lose.
So in terms of winning, do you have a best moment winning here?
No, not in particular. I have a worst moment.
Okay, what was that?
It was when Bernard King dropped 50 on us in this place right here.
Nice.
Great player. And I got to a lot of players' shots. I was a good shot blocker. Never got to his. He had one of the quickest releases ever and became one of my most admired players. Not even before that, but after that, I was like, okay, I really like this guy.
All right, folks, one of the greats, longtime NBA player, current Jazz broadcaster, and of course, college champion, Thurl Bailey. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, we're back.